What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel, and today's video is not going to be the Super Bowl. I figured let's leave it for Super Bowl Sunday. So tomorrow we will have the Detroit Lions versus Cleveland Browns Madden 21 franchise Super Bowl. But today's video, I was actually going to take the day off, but I got this in a comment to on Reddit. Someone replied to me and said, C4, you should actually make a video about this because this is massive news for Madden franchise. And if you're not like super in deep into Madden franchise Twitter, this might go kind of past you. And I do think it is worth making a little bit of noise, drawing some attention to this, because I think what we're going to talk about here today is bigger than any feature or any improvement that we've got to franchise mode here in Madden 22. And I think it's probably the smartest thing that Madden has done from a development and vision standpoint, maybe ever, maybe at least since I've been here. I don't want to overhype it because obviously there's some limitations, proof is in the pudding, everything in between. But yesterday, or was it yesterday? It was the 8th, so that would have been a couple days ago, on the Making Madden podcast, which is a podcast that Madden has done, and it started this year, and it's kind of been peeling back the layers and having devs talk about their decisions into, so far it's been predominantly franchise mode. They're talking about why they did certain things for franchise mode in Madden 22, what they think is going to be coming as part of the planned live updates, and really the vision of franchise mode going forward. I think this is a level and line of communication that is very much appreciated. I think it's awesome. It's only like 30, 40-minute long podcast, so definitely go check that out. But during this podcast, where they were talking about Season Engine, Franchise Hub, and tuning, they announced that Deuce Douglas, Vince, has joined the Madden dev team. He's been there since October, so you're starting to see a lot of his influence into the features so far in Madden 22. I actually made a tweet before I knew any of this, saying, I'm sure Deuce Douglas will be getting royalties in the mail. They seem to follow sections of his franchise overhaul as the blueprint for what the community wanted. And it's not just been me. There's been a lot of people in this franchise community saying that if there could be one guy that we could kind of usher up and send to EA and be like, hey, can this guy help? It would have been Deuce Douglas. I've said it for any of my wish lists, almost at any point, either in the beginning or the end of those videos. It's like, just use this guy. Just have him come in, design your franchise mode. He understands what this community wants. I've actually gone on a little bit of, it was like they flew in a bunch of us guys a couple of years ago, I think it was from Madden 20, to check out franchise mode, play the game, give notes, give feedback sessions, and that's where I met him, and you can just see right away, like, he gets it. He absolutely gets it, and this is awesome. This is very good for franchise mode going forward, because we've seen so far here in Madden 22, the updates. We got staff management, the weekly team goal selections, the talent trees. Obviously there's some NCAA influence for sure, but outside the talent trees, we're seeing now kind of the super in-depth scout assignments that will be coming in September. You got to remember right now, in case you've been living on a rock as well, you're going to have to start your franchises over, restart them to get that scouting thing to work in September. So probably you're going to want to hold off just a little bit. We have the weekly strategy. We're just seeing levels of depth here. How are you going to handle your training? Do you want, you have to manage fatigue and injuries. Now there's going to be some press conferences and stuff like that. And as soon as I saw Andy reading some of these, I was like, because Deuce Douglas is a Kansas City Chiefs fan. But ultimately, you look at all of these different little features that are coming towards Madden 22. And if you've been following Deuce Douglas's blueprints, and I think he's done 2 of them so far. And I mean, it started on Operation Sports, which is a great forum, great Madden hub. And that was really the beginning of like, this guy needs to go on and do something with the Madden team. And the fact that they've extended out that olive branch that brought him on, and we're already seeing, he's only been there since October, so he probably came in, I would actually probably say they probably already started the blueprint of what they were going to do in Madden 22. So knowing that 22, 23 going forward, he's going to be there, I think that this is massive news. So just ignore the screen here. We got, obviously, the franchise hub has changed a lot. And I wanted to bring light to this because it's not just, a guy that I know. I met, like I don't know how long we were actually. It was like a week almost, and just sitting in a room with a bunch of franchise people, not all necessarily content creators, and understanding that like the best of the bunch is getting rewarded and now going to have proper influence over a mode that desperately needs some TLC, that desperately needs some love. It feels awesome. It feels like they're finally hearing the franchise community. And I think why Deuce Douglas was the right person is because obviously, I think some of my ideas are awesome. I know there's a lot of other people out here that do wish lists and stuff like that think their ideas are awesome. And there's a lot of people that are very negative towards Madden and like the crap over everything, but they don't necessarily come up with good alternatives outside of like, well, let's just use something from a video game 15 years ago or something like that. I think amongst all of the chatter and all of the, spitballing of what we wanted in franchise mode, Deuce Douglas was really the first guy to kind of draft up concepts that can back up what he wants for a change. He's not just saying something like, oh, we want, this level of scouting, and not actually putting it into fruition to say like, look, it can be done and this is how it should be done. He was really the guy that took that leap in towards just making outrageous looking concepts that look like it's actually a game within itself. And this one here, I think this was the second kind of mock-up he made for franchise mode. I think the first one was on Operation Sports. But this one here, he posted on medium.com in 2020. And you could just see, like, and the reason why I want to show this and I want to end with this is because you're probably going to see in this elements of his mock-up already in Madden 22. And what does Madden franchise mode do in the future? Well, taking a look here at these features that may not have been included in Madden 22 could give us a vision of what is going to be happening and coming to franchise mode in the coming years. So we'll just kind of go quickly through it and definitely go check this out just in general. You can just type in Deuce Douglas Madden franchise mode. It's time to be classic. So we have preseason, being able to choose your preseason opponents. That was obviously a feature that was in older Maddens. I feel like, sure, why not? I mean, that's not necessarily a feature that I make or break for me, but any more level of customization, sure. This is a cool one, though. Position battle scenarios, where we have here for the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky going against Nick Foles, or for the 49ers, Emmanuel Mosley against Witherspoon. And I feel like here's like a level of like, this feature could come into Madden, right? This feature could come into Madden, and you could just straight up have this, where it's a scenario, you click it during the week, and you do this little battle. I don't know if necessarily you do like a training camp battle. You see how these guys statistically compare throughout the preseason. Then you make your decision. But I almost feel like for a lot of these features, there's like, you crank the dial up a little bit because they throw that Deuce Douglas element. Because I feel like that's fine, having these positional battles. But I want a conclusion from it. I don't just want there to be like, well, here's two guys you can decide to play, and ultimately come to your decision, you might get a little bit boost. I want, if I have a battle here, for example, between Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles, yada, 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 to go through the battle, if we give Nick Foles that starting gig, I also then want a scenario to pop up where Mitchell Trubisky says, I want to be traded. I want there to be ramifications for stuff like this that pop up, scenarios, and all these different little cutscenes that they want to interject in Madden. It can't be window dressing. It needs to have some sort of context. And if you are giving me the option for a positional battle, I think this is going to be awesome. This is going to be something that's great, especially when, if they continue to dive into Fog of War for rookies. If you make that game between a proven player where you can see all of his stats, and you have that rookie that has everything in it, you have to play him to figure out his stats. It gives you that balance of like, do I play that rookie that I think is going to be better, and then in turn know that my other player, which has already been in the NFL for a little bit, is going to request a trade or demand to be released, something like that? Like, that adds that whole level of strategy within your franchise mode. So I do think an element to some of these features that Deuce Douglas has concepted up, and I think he's probably going to try to push to get into franchise mode, is there needs to be more consequences in Madden franchise mode. It doesn't all need to be cookie cutter, and I feel like that is pretty awesome. So he also says right here, a player that wins the starting gig could potentially trigger an additional scenario that results in a player receiving a boost in either the form of XP or a dev trade scenario. So I think ultimately, this is definitely something I would think would be seamlessly transitional, does that even make sense, into the current Madden dev trade scenario. This gives you something that just straight up triggers at the beginning of your preseason, and that would be awesome to have in your franchise mode. Now, obviously here, we have the bigger depth into Fog of War. This is something that even when me and him were down at, we'll just say down in Florida, this is something that it just doesn't make sense to give out everyone's ability, and like, this is kind of what your hub should look like when you draft a player. But I also think generally, like, you should have to figure out everything about your guy. Why you're getting spoon-fed information, especially if you're from like another team. I don't want to be the Eagles and go in and like, this is what I should look like if I'm the Eagles and I'm looking at Joe Burrow. And then you could open up another element of scouting and all that other stuff. But I definitely think bumping up and increasing the amount of Fog of War for player ratings is fine. Because I mean, I've heard the people that have their counterpoints towards it, where it's more so, I already know this guy's good. Why you're going to just add that extra step of withholding information. I already know Christian McCaffrey's going to be a super good running back. That's fine. And you'll know that information for year one, right? You'll generally know who's really good and who's really bad. But say you get year 3 in your franchise mode. Guys are starting to regress. Guys are starting to progress. You don't know if there's going to be some crazy dev trade scenarios popping up left, right, and center. So it's something that just adds a little bit more immersion. Maybe not so much year one when you have that clear picture of what the landscape of the NFL is, but give it 2-3 years. Once some progression starts to kick in, once some progression on other teams that you may not be paying attention to kick in, and really this feature I definitely think would be that much more beneficial. Again, you just look at other rosters, you have to do X amount of snaps to figure out what their actual number grade is, so throw in a lot more letter grades. So that was something that was in older Maddens. I can't remember the top of my head, like Madden 12, for example. I remember you would straight up wouldn't have any stats with your rookies. You had to figure out and play with them. And I definitely think that's a direction you want to go. We have some other things, though. He does a lot of, obviously, like you look at something like this, where you have fully fledged out coaching staffs. And I do think that level of... They talk about it a little bit. I think Swami actually talked about it in the Making Madden podcast, where it's like they decided to go with coaching staffs for this year of head coach, OC, DC, and then you kind of have your general manager, right? And while absolutely there's room to have QB coach, running back coach, wide receiver coach, O-line coach, all that stuff, and I think personally for someone like myself, that would be awesome. But to the general player, to the general franchise player, not necessarily the hardcore, not necessarily a casual, but just a general franchise player, that could look a little daunting. That could look a little too extreme, a little too much managing. And I kind of agree to that to a certain degree. That's a lot more moving pieces. How much more intricate would the coding and all that stuff under the hood have to have this much influence, this much coaching staff? So I definitely think generally for the coaching staff feature, while Deuce Douglas definitely has in his wheelhouse to go all in and have fully fledged coaching staffs, I do think if you simplify it to a degree and maybe focus more so on absolutely nailing a coaching carousel, right? Take all that time of having to, figure out all these different coordinators. Give us the 3, but give us a true journey to have as a coaching carousel. Let me start as a DC, have specific DC-only cutscenes, have off-seasons where you are a DC and you might have opportunities to interview for head coaching jobs. I don't think that's the direction they should go, maybe more so than making coaching staffs have a little bit more depth. But, obviously that is just personally a little bit of opinion. But you have here all these different influences that you could clearly see in the coaching staff feature that is coming towards Madden 22. Outside of that, you have his bio, week to week managing, and you kind of see that with the improvements into Madden 22's the weekly planning strategy guides, which again makes it so like if you truly want to get 2 feet in, you can sim a lot of this stuff and just continue on with bang, 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 like a lot of rebuilds and stuff like that. You're probably not going to be going the day-to-day and trying to prepare for your opponent. That makes you really feel like every opponent's unique. Because when you're going against Baltimore, you already know that you're going to have to do in a train and practice throughout that week a little bit different than if you're going against, someone like the Buffalo Bills, where obviously the Ravens want to run the ball, Buffalo wants to throw the ball. But I do think that the weekly training, the weekly game plans and stuff like that is definitely a direction in the right direction, that should be going. It should offer that, because you can always just sim out. If you think it's going to be too much, you think it's going to be too much micromanaging, you can always just sim out, but have that feature there for the people that truly want to go into their franchise mode. Don't just want to try to get to a Super Bowl as quickly as possible, which is unfortunately, I kind of think, the vision of franchise mode for the last couple years has not necessarily been on the depth side, the realistic side, the immersive side. It's been, how can we make a franchise mode where anybody can pick it up and get the Super Bowl as fast as possible? That's kind of what it's felt like. Rookie scouting, obviously we don't really know yet a whole lot about the scouting mechanisms that's going to be coming, but I will say that's probably been my favorite part of Deuce Douglas's mock-ups, have been his take on scouting. You can see the regional scouts, which obviously from the little tidbits that we've got of scouting that is coming in Madden 22, there's heavy Deuce Douglas influence there. And I think if this is probably the biggest thing that's I'm hoping for from the Deuce Douglas news and for what we're still waiting for Madden 22, and that is I want the scouting to look like this, because we still don't really know. We're pretty sure it's not going to be the hit X 3-time scouting where you get just number grades and that's it. If we can get something like this, right, where we are getting a fully fledged scouting report that shows the pros and cons, gives you comps, gives you all this information about certain prospects, and that's ultimately going to be based upon your coaching staff and how maybe many upgrades and boosts you have towards scouting. That's going to be absolute home run here for Madden 22 franchise and for it going forward. But ultimately, and look, you can see some regional scouts here. You can see some former players. You got Kuechly, Weddle, Thomas Davis, Eli Manning. And I don't want to just make this whole video about talking, every single thing he's done here. But look, he's done and kind of completely revamped The combine, the information that you get for different scouting prospects. You see their injury history, which is obviously, that's something that should be important. You don't want to draft a guy that's had like 6 ACL tears. You don't want to, like Landon Dickerson, the Philadelphia Eagles got him, the center from Florida State in Alabama. And at both those schools had some big injuries. That should be information you should be able to acquire in Madden, especially with injuries being it's such a goddamn annoying thing that happens from time to time. And he's gone in and completely revamped free agent. Definitely go check this out. Ultimately, my point just being for this video, fellas, is that if you haven't heard of Deuce Douglas, go check out Deuce Douglas, because it may just give you guys an inside of what's coming for franchise mode going forward. Obviously, he's probably the new guy in the block. Don't know how much swing he's getting, but at least the right people took note of what the best the Madden franchise community has to offer, and it at least show, like, the fact that he's getting an opportunity. I definitely, like, I put this, I'm wearing this sweater for a reason today. Okay, it's happy. I think this is an awesome move, and the fact that I still can't understand the people that are negative right now about the information we've got about Madden 22 for franchise mode in particular. Like, at least now, this is the one thing that I think anybody and everybody in the franchise community can be like, that's all you can say, man. Deuce Douglas being a member of the franchise team, that is the best news we have got for Madden franchise here in 22, and I can't wait to see what they do going forward. So that is for me today, guys. Again, tomorrow will be Super Bowl Sunday. We will have the Detroit Lions against the Cleveland Browns. It's a banger of a game. I'm sure it will be. And I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching. Until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.